All right, gang. Well, we've been looking at arithmetic sequences, and arithmetic sequences are linear functions. And of course, when we're looking at a arithmetic sequence, we're looking at a set of numbers, and we're trying to see and establish if there's a common difference. So, but what we're going to try to deal with here is we're going to take a look at a formula or an equation that allows us to find a specific term in a sequence. It might be one that we can't even see yet. So let's take a look here. We got a sequence here of 1, 3, 5, and 7. There's our sequence. And when we look at that, we can see that the difference between 1 and 3 is 2. And the difference between 3 and 5 is 2. And the difference between 5 and 7 is 2. And we would say that we got a common difference of 2. And there's a difference of 2, a positive 2, between each and every one of the numbers in our sequence. So let's take a look at this formula. So we start off here with a to the n. Well, that's simply going to be a specific term in the sequence. Now, that might be the 10th term, that might be the 12th term, it might be the 20th term, might be the 5th term, could be anything, but it is a specific term. Now, A1 here will always relate to the first term that we see in the sequence. N is going to be our variable, and we got n minus 1. That's part of our equation of our formula. And then we've got D here, which is our common difference. And in this sequence that we're looking at here above, we have determined that our common difference is 2. So let's take a look at what we have here. And let's get our formula or our equation put together, and then maybe we'll look about finding a specific term. So start off here. We got AN equals A1, and A1 again is always going to equal that first number in the sequence. So we got 1 plus N minus 1 times 2, which is our common difference. Now, I'm going to have to distribute this 2 to what's inside those parentheses. We're talking about the order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We're going parentheses first. Now, I recognize that some of you guys are still having some issues with distribution or distributive property. And let me say this. If this is still a problem for you, you need to get in here, and we need to get together some afternoon after school, and let's work on this. But you've got to take the initiative to do that. If you feel like this is an area that you need some additional help in, you need to get with me and let's schedule a time to get together. But this one's pretty simple, so we're going to go through it. So we got AN. This is going to allow us to find what any term in the sequence. And so we got 1 plus, well, I'm going to distribute that 2 to the n. So now we've got plus 2n, 2 times n. And I'm going to distribute this 2 to the minus 1, this negative 1. Negative 1, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. All right, now I'm going to look to combine like terms. And so I got two like terms. I got a positive 1 and I got a negative 2. 1 minus 2 gives me minus 1 plus 2n. And that's all going to equal a n. Okay. Now, what if I was then to be asked, well, what's the 10th term in this sequence right here? Well, I could just keep adding 2 plus 2 plus 2. I go 7, 9, 11, 12, 13, so on and so forth. Or I can substitute 10 for this variable right here. I don't know if you can see that or not. So let's do that. So I got minus 1. Let me change colors on this thing. Got minus 1 plus, let me back over. I got a to the, say we got a. We want to know what the 10th number of the sequence is. Again, minus 1 plus 2 times 10. All right, well, 2 times 10 is 20. And 20 minus 1 equals 19. And so the 10th number of this sequence should be 19. So let's see. If we added 2 to 7, that would give us 9. Then we got 11. Add 2 more, 13. Add 2 more, 15. Add 2 more, 17. Add 2 more, 19. Let's see if that's the 10th term. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. That allows us to find a specific number in a sequence. In this case, it's the 10th number in the sequence, based upon what the first number in the sequence is and what we see as the common difference. Now, we're not going to always have a sequence as simple as the one that we saw before, where the common difference was 2 and it was 1, 3, 5, 7. We asked maybe to find the 10th term, and we could actually just do that manually. But many of these arithmetic sequences may be more complex or involve negative numbers and sometimes fairly large negative numbers, and this is one of them. So let's look here first at our sequence, and this is our sequence here. Okay, and so the first term here is 3, and the second term is minus 10. Now, the common difference between those is going to be minus 13. Now, this makes me think of something else here. One of the other things I see that some of you still have some difficulty dealing with positive and negative numbers, adding and subtracting those together. And so kind of like our distribution property, if this is an area you feel like you need some extra practice, some extra work, or one that we're not looking at right here, dealing with fractions, the way we're going to have to handle that is we're going to have to get in after school, or maybe show you some, maybe me provide you some things that can help you outside of school. One of those two things. But again, you've got to take that initiative to get with me so that we can address those issues if you feel like that pertains to you. And if not, hey, that's great. That's good. All right. So we got minus 13 difference between the first and the second number in the sequence. And from minus 10 or negative 10 to negative 23 is also negative 13. And from negative 23 to negative 36 is again negative 13. So I'm pretty well convinced from what I see that my common difference, or D, equals negative 13. All right. Now, I want to get my equation put together so that I can then determine any number within this arithmetic sequence. So let's see here. Now, we got a to the n equals a1. Now, what are we going to put in for a1? We're always going to put the first number of the sequence. That's why they call it a1. It is the first number, 1, of A, the arithmetic sequence, A1. That's where that comes from. A for arithmetic, 1 for the first number in the sequence. And in this case, that's 3. Plus, in parentheses, n, that's my variable, minus 1. And then I'm going to apply my common difference, which is minus 13. All right. Now, I've got to distribute this negative 13 to what's inside the parentheses. So let's see, I can go ahead and just write 3 here because I'm not going to do anything with it yet, because please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We'll deal with that later. All right, negative 13 times n. Well, that's going to give me not positive n. It's going to give me negative 13n. And negative 13 times negative 1 is going to give me positive 13. All right, so now I can combine these two terms, the 3 and the 13, and then I can just say that an equals minus or negative 13n plus 16. So there's my equation. Now, let's say that we're asked to find the 15th term in this sequence. Well, you can see, I mean, subtracting 13 or got negative 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 11 more times. One, it's going to get to be a pretty big number, and it's going to get pretty difficult to do. It's going to be much easier to just put in 15 for n. So A, the arithmetic sequence of the 15th number of this sequence would then be minus 13 times 15 plus 16. All right, I think I'm going to have to get my calculator out on this negative 13 times 15. So I got negative 13 times 15, and that equals 195. That equals negative 195, should say. Negative 195 plus 16. This is going to equal a to the 15th. 15th term in the arithmetic sequence. So let's see, negative 195 plus 16 equals negative 179. So in this particular sequence, a sequence that starts with the number 3, has a common difference of negative 13, the 15th number in that sequence would be negative 179. Shazam, we're done.